Tefila tilecha Adonai et ratzon Elohim berov kastecha Elohim berov kastecha Aneni bemet ishecha
We invite you, please, to rise as we turn to page 178 for Baruch Hu. Yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai lai.
Please be seated. During these 10 days, there is a lot of emphasis on the truth that we hurt and that we are hurt. Every single morning and evening in our daily prayers, there is a reminder that we love and are loved by a great unending love. We continue with Ahava Rabbah.
Ahava
למדים חוקי חיים.
כן תכוננו ותלמדנו, כן תכוננו ותלמדנו, אהבה Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
When we sing Mi Chamocha, that song giving thanks for our liberation that we sang when we were finally free from bondage, it's easy to forget that the journey there was long and messy, the length of a sea. Our feet weighed down with muck and mud. We were hungry and we were tired. But that made that exhilaration of liberation all the more something to celebrate. We look forward to that moment at the end of these days as we imagine it now on page 196.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נגע בקודש, דורות תהילות אוסף אלה. שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים, לשמך שפת הים, יחר כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
We rise for the Amidah on page 200. Baruch atah Adonai
Please be seated. A reflection on Unetana Tokef by Rabbi Edward Feinstein. On Rosh Hashanah, this is written. On the fast of Yom Kippur, this is sealed. Who will live and who will die? Who will reach the ripeness of age? Who will be taken before their time? Who by fire and who by water? Who by earthquake and who by plague? Who will rest and who will wander? Who will be tranquil and who will be troubled? I sat in shul for years reading these words before I realized the answer. The answer to each of these questions is me. Who will live and who shall die? I will. Who at their end and who not at their end? Me. Like every human being, when I die, it will be at the right time, and it will also be too soon. Fire, water, earthquake, plague. In my lifetime, I've been scorched and drowned, shaken and burdened, wandering and at rest, tranquil and troubled. That has been my life's journey. Of course, I prefer to deflect this truth. I would much prefer to let the prayers talk about someone else, about the fellow in the next row. It has taken a lifetime to reveal that defense as a lie. The prayer is not about someone else. It's about me. It is a frightfully succinct summary of my existence. So now I read it again, but in the first person, and it makes me shiver. I will live and I will die at the right time and before my time. I will wander, but I might yet find rest. I will be troubled, but I may achieve tranquility. This is the central truth of thy holy days. This is what makes them the Yamim Noraim, days of terror. We are vulnerable. We continue now on page 208 with Unetana Tokef.
Unetane Tokef Kedushat Hayom Ki hu nora ve'ayom Uvo tinaseh malchutecha V'yikon bechesed kisecha V'teshev alav be'emet V'teshev alav be'emet Emet ki ata hu dayan u'mochiach v'yodea va'ed V'kotem v'sofer u'moneh Yizkor et kol hanishkakot V'tiftach et sefer hazikronot U'me'elav yikareh b'chotam yad kol adam bo Shofar gadol yitaka V'kod mamadaka yishama U'malachim yechafezun V'chirurei ada yochezun U'malachim yechafezun V'chirurei ada yochezun U'v'shofar gadol yitaka V'kod mamadaka yishama U'malachim yechafezun V'chirurei ada yochezun U'malachim yechafezun V'chirurei ada yochezun V'yomeru hinei yom hadin V'yifkol atzvam arom badin Ki lo yizku b'einecha badin V'chol ba'ei olam yavru lefanecha kivnei maron V'bakarat roe edro Ma'avir tzonot tachat shivto V'chol ba'ei olam yavru lefanecha kivnei maron V'bakarat roe edro ברצונו תקשיבתו כן תעביר ותזכור ותמנה ותפקור נפש שולחי ותכתוב קצבה לכל בריאה ותכתוב את גזר דינם ובשופר גדול ייתקע וקול דממה דקה יישמע ומלאכים יחפזון וחירורי אדם יוחזון ומלאכים יחפזון וחירורי אדם יוחזון ובשופר גדול ייתקע וקול דממה דקה יישמע ומלאכים יחפזון וחירורי אדם יוחזון ומלאכים יחפזון וחירורי אדם יוחזון.
Please join me on 210. And so a great shofar will cry, Tekiah. A still small voice will be heard. Angels in a whirl of fear and trembling will say, behold the day of judgment, for they too are judged. In your eyes, even they are not blameless. All who come into the world pass before you, like sheep before their shepherd. As a shepherd considers the flock when it passes beneath the staff, you count and consider every life. You set bounds, you decide destiny, you inscribe judgment.
Shaaray
An empty page, an open book, a day of ultimate questions. Will I still be here next year at this time with loved ones I love beside me? What is in store for my family and what will become of my friends? Who will have reason to celebrate? Who will contend with grief? New love, new babies, marriages deepening or breaking apart, prosperity, struggle, reversals of fortune, illness, and health await us. Who will be missing when we gather next? Who will stand apart? Who will be estranged? And who will have joined us, enriching our community? On the edge of the unknown we tremble. What lies ahead for us all? An empty page, an open book. Nothing is written and nothing is sealed. Flesh and blood, frail creatures, our lives are fleeting and subject to chance. Yet this we possess, the strength to persist, to prevail, to comfort one another in the dark. Prayer, right action, a turning toward the good. These give us hope and help us bear the pain of life.
Ashul kacheres hanishbar Kekatzir yavishu ketzitz novel Uketzel over Ukeanan kaleh Ukeru Shavet, Ucheava Korea. Echa Chalom Yauf.
We invite you to rise and turn to page 218 for the Kedusha. Mekadesh et shimcha ba'olam Kishem shemakdishim oto b'shmei marhom Hakatuv ayad nevi'echa
וקרא זה זה ואמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. אדיר אדירנו אדוני אדוננו מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ורחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון לדור ודור. הללויה, 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 הללויה.
Please be seated.
Some of you might have heard me share this story earlier in the summer. As many of you know, I grew up in the Chicagoland area. We lived in the southern suburbs, but would often visit my dad's parents in Skokie, north of the city. I was 8 years old when a group of neo-Nazis threatened to march in Skokie. When I heard about the planned march, I remember being scared for my grandparents. I grew up in a Reformed synagogue that had lots of members who were Holocaust survivors. Several of my Hebrew school teachers had numbers tattooed on their arms. I wonder now, looking back, what my Omi and Opie, who were 13 or so when the Nazis came to power in Germany, what they thought about the planned march in Skokie, their very Jewish, adopted American hometown. I actually don't know what came to their minds. I never asked them. I wonder, though, did they think, here we go again? For me at the time, perhaps because I never remember personally experiencing it, I do remember thinking in my 8-year-old self, I thought anti-Semitism ended after the Holocaust. Boy, was I naive. In our time, the incidents of anti-Semitism are almost too numerous to count and far too many to ignore. The Tree of Life synagogue shooting, the Poway synagogue shooting, a 29-year-old man punched, kicked, and pepper sprayed in Times Square a few months back. In Los Angeles, 5 Jews attacked by people waving Palestinian flags. Jewish institutions vandalized, synagogues receiving threatening phone calls, Jews harassed on social media. Anti-Semitism might be called the oldest hatred, but to my deep sadness and dismay, it is also a current event. According to a study done by the Anti-Defamation League, there has been a 63% increase in these attacks in the last few years, among the highest counts since the ADL began keeping statistics in the 1970s. I admit there's a part of me that is surprised when I hear that, a part of me that asks incredulously, even here in America? And then a part of me that responds wearily, yes, here in America. American democracy and religious freedom have been a gift to the Jewish people, to my family, and I'm sure to many of your families as well, allowing us to thrive here as we have nowhere else in the long history of our diaspora. And yet we know a more troubling legacy. Here in America, where Father Charles Coughlin spewed Jew hatred on his 1930s radio show to 30 million listeners a week. Here in America, where aviation hero Charles Lindbergh spoke at a rally of the isolationist America First Committee in 1941. And recall Henry Ford, who received the highest honors from Adolf Hitler for his promulgation of anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. But wait, the first part of me says, just because there's Jew hatred in our past doesn't mean that it's in our societal DNA. That was then. This is now. And then that other part of me, wearier still, says one word: Charlottesville. White supremacists, the Klan in khakis, chants of "Jews will not replace us," armed extremists gathered outside the Reform Synagogue in Charlottesville while the Jews prayed inside. In the 21st century, here in America, racism and anti-Semitism marched in lockstep in Charlottesville and reminded us of the truth we learn and forget, and now in 2021 learn again. Anti-Semitism flourishes in any hothouse of intolerance and grows robustly alongside other hatreds, whether those hatreds seem directed at us as Jews or not. Racism, nativism, homophobia, Islamophobia, all should ring a shofar call of alarm, not only for the decency of American society, but for the safety and well-being of our Jewish community. These past few years have taught us yet again, it is both morally repugnant and practically misguided to hunker down while others are targeted, let alone to support those who do the targeting. But what exactly is this phenomenon we call anti-Semitism? The term itself was popularized by a Jew hater named Wilhelm Marr in 19th century Germany, who sought to racialize the hatred of Jews beyond its religious roots. Sociologist Helen Feen defined it as, quote, a persisting, latent structure of hostile beliefs towards Jews as a collectivity. We use the word to refer to Jew hatred in all its forms, from a swastika that defaced my niece's school in Georgia just last week, to internet screeds about Jews controlling the global economy, from the religiously motivated anti-Judaism of the ancient and medieval church, which saw Jews as the source of ultimate evil for their rejection of Christianity, to the 19th century racial theories which saw Jews as corrupting the purity of the white race and eventually gave rise to Nazism, to the political uses of anti-Semitism today by left and right alike. In important and recent books, Professor Deborah Lipstadt of Emory University and New York Times columnist Barry Weiss each emphasize that anti-Semitism, for all its diverse expressions, always asserts a core conviction of conspiracy, of Jews as a maliciously intelligent force, small in number, cosmopolitan in alliance, with the ability to compel the will of the powerful and wreak havoc around the world. In the eyes of the anti-Semite, Weiss writes, the Jew is whatever the anti-Semite needs him to be, the symbol of whatever a given civilization defines as its most sinister and threatening qualities. Think about it. To the anti-Semitic country club capitalist, Jews are a bunch of commies inciting the rabble. But to the anti-Semitic leftist, Jews oppress the common man by controlling all the capital. Eric Ward, an African-American community organizer and activist, argues that to white supremacists, Jews are considered traitors to the white race, and that our intentional scheming and perverse sympathies are the only possible explanation for the ascent of all those innately inferior people of color in America. It is out of all of these pernicious dynamics that my grandparents and millions of other Jews with a 1,000-year history in places like Germany were oppressed, expelled, or murdered during World War II. And in many ways, it is this dynamic and these conspiracies that continue to threaten us today. Ward, the black organizer and activist, tells the story of visiting what is called a preparedness expo at a convention center in Seattle in 1995. Ward attended as a field organizer for the Northwest Coalition Against Malicious Harassment, a 6-state coalition working to reduce hate crimes and violence in the Pacific Northwest and Mountain States region. The coalition does a lot of primary research, often undercover. A cardinal rule of organizing is that you can't ask people to do anything you haven't done yourself. So Ward spent that weekend, as he spent many, among people plotting to remove people like him from their ethno-state. It helped that despite its blood-curdling anti-black racism, at least some factions of the white nationalist movement saw Ward as a potential ally against their true archenemy. At the expo that year, a guy warily asked Ward why he was there. Ward told him that he'd come on behalf of a few brothers in the city who wanted to resist the federal government and were there to get educated. Ward said he hoped the guy wouldn't take it personally, but that he didn't shake hands with white people. The guy smiled. He totally understood. Brother McLam, the guy said, says we have to start building broad coalitions. Together they went to hear Jack McLam, a retired Phoenix cop who ran an organization called Police Against the New World Order, make a case for temporary alliances with, quote, the blacks, the Mexicans, and the Orientals against the real enemy, the federal government controlled by an international conspiracy. McLam didn't even have to say who ran this conspiracy because it was obvious to all who were in attendance. Contemporary anti-Semitism, according to Ward, does not just enable racism, it also is racism. For in the white nationalist imagination, Jews are a race, the race that presents an existential threat to whiteness. The bottom line, white supremacists who, amongst themselves, have plenty of disagreements, all agree on one thing. Jews are not white. And Ward says that we ignore that at our own peril. I'm honored that Eric Ward will be speaking later today at 3:30 here in the sanctuary and online to explain the importance of understanding that anti-Semitism is not a sideshow to racism, as much as it is the fuel that white nationalism uses to power its anti-black racism, its contempt for other people of color, its xenophobia, its misogyny, and the other forms of hatred it holds dear. As author Joe Glanville writes, anti-Semitism never goes out of fashion. It adapts endlessly to the anxieties of the age. Pandemic? Jews are behind it. Immigration? Jews are orchestrating it. Terrorist plot? A Zionist atrocity. We perhaps know it best in its right-wing extremist forms, Charlottesville and its tiki torches, internet harassment, and death threats to Jewish journalists, the domestic terrorism of neo-Nazis and the white supremacist movement. Political leaders like our former president and like Representatives Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert in recent months have all perpetrated the age-old kind of anti-Semitic conspiracy theories that only serve to give cover to and inflame those who would lash out at Jews and blame us for the problems of society. But anti-Semitism has found a home on the left as well. We see much of its current manifestations on college campuses where Jewish students and professors who express support for Israel can encounter harassment or exclusion from progressive spaces and movements. As you've heard me say before, and as I deeply believe, Israel, like every other sovereign state, can and should be criticized when it doesn't live up to its human rights obligations, to the aspirations laid out in its own Declaration of Independence, including toward its own Jewish and Palestinian citizens and residents, as well as towards those living under its occupation. Criticism of Israel as a nation bound by the same international law as other countries is not inherently anti-Semitic. But it is anti-Semitic and beyond the pale, as Rabbi Joel Jacobs teaches, to equate Jews or Jewish institutions with the state of Israel, or to take out anger about Israel's actions against Jews or Jewish institutions, or to apply to Israel the classic anti-Semitic tropes such as the visual of the octopus controlling the world with its tentacles, or to deny Jewish history in Israel, or to call for the expulsion of all Jews from Israel, or to demand that Jewish students and professors on campus disavow any connection to Israel before joining progressive coalitions or taking any part in student government. My friends, as New York Times reporter Emmer Goldberg has written, we Jews have lived a dual history of trauma and privilege. Yes, we have achieved and experienced a notable measure of success and status in American society, but we know too well that such success is no guarantee of protection against and sometimes invites forces of scapegoating and hatred. So how shall we combat anti-Semitism in the year 5782, now 10 days old? First, of course, we expand our physical security. We, like thousands of Jewish organizations across the country, have enhanced our security measures significantly here at the synagogue over the years. I wish that we didn't live in a world where a synagogue would need armed security guards, but we do. At the same time, we recognize that a synagogue that becomes a fortress is no longer a synagogue. I'm grateful every day, and I hope you are too, for the outstanding security professionals who protect us. I hope you'll thank them on the way out. And for the excellent team of lay people and synagogue staff who help us strike the best possible balance between keeping people safe and helping people feel welcomed by this community of meaning, connection, and purpose. Second, we must call out and continue to call out anti-Semitism from wherever it comes. If you find yourself rationalizing or minimizing the anti-Semitism of someone from your chosen political party, while railing against the anti-Semitism of someone from a different political party, then you are reducing anti-Semitism to a partisan political cudgel and cannot claim to be taking it seriously. One of the first places we can call out anti-Semitism, whether tweeted from the halls of Congress or dog whistled from the White House, is among our own political allies. Third, I'd actually submit for your consideration, ironically, that we take up the recommendation of the white supremacist Brother McLamb that Eric Ward met at the Preparedness Expo. We have to start building broad coalitions. Jews cannot and should not try to stand alone in the fight against anti-Semitism. We need to see our fate as Jews as inextricably linked with the fate of others and help them see that ours is linked with theirs. We must show, not just tell our neighbors and non-Jewish friends about the beauty of our traditions. We must share our sacred stories with them and then listen with strong backs and open hearts as they share their sacred stories with us. As individuals, we should invite them to our seders and to services and to Shabbat dinners, and we should accept their invites to church celebrations and iftar meals. As a congregation, we can deepen our interfaith organizing efforts in Manhattan together that bring us into real, deep relationship and sacred action with peoples of many different faiths and backgrounds. When we see people as human beings and they see us, it is much harder for us to demonize one another. Fourth, let us lean into the beauty of Judaism itself. Deborah Lipstadt, someone who has been, as she calls it, swimming in the sewers of Jew hatred and Holocaust denial for 40 years, said at our most recent Reform Movement Biennial Convention that while she is, of course, deeply concerned about the trend towards increased anti-Semitism, she is equally worried about what we Jews might do to ourselves because of anti-Semitism. Concern about anti-Semitism cannot become the leitmotif, the cornerstone of our Judaism, Lipstadt says. She shared the story of one of her students, a senior at Emory University who Dr. Lipstadt had known for 4 years, who suddenly began to wear a kippah. When the professor asked him why, he replied, quote, "There have been so many attacks on Jews recently. I've decided that every time there is an anti-Semitic attack, I'm going to wear my kippah so that I can show the anti-Semites they can't frighten me." When she told this story, the 5,000 Reformed Jews at the biennial plenary applauded as one. Dr. Lipstadt smiled a wry smile and said, "I had a slightly different reaction." She went on to say that while she admired her student's chutzpah, his desire to show his identity and not cower in fear, she said that her heart broke a little inside because her student had allowed anti-Semites to determine when he felt Jewish. They were controlling his Jewish identity. He was motivated by the oi of being Jewish, not by the joy of Jewish life. "That's not my Judaism," Dr. Lipstadt said, "and I don't want it to be his." Lipstadt, a fearless warrior against anti-Semitism, called on us to live affirmatively joyous Jewish lives, to celebrate Shabbat, to honor our parents, to shoo away the mother bird from the nest before taking the eggs, to be concerned about the most vulnerable among us, to let our land lie fallow every 7 years, to pursue justice with just means, and to maintain an indelible connection to the state of Israel even when we disagree with its policies. In short, she called upon us to build a Jewish identity based on what Jews do and not on what is done to Jews. Lastly, as real and stubborn as the existence of anti-Semitism is, we need to keep it in perspective. Dr. Lipstadt reminds us that even the alarming upsurge of anti-Semitism in Europe today does not come close to the anti-Semitism of pre-Holocaust Europe with its state-sponsored persecution, and is actually accompanied by encouraging signs of Jewish rebirth. After the shooting at Tree of Life, after Poway, after Charlottesville, after attacks in Los Angeles and here in New York, the outpouring of love and sympathy and solidarity for the Jewish community was profound, with very public support coming from the general population, from politicians of all political persuasions, from religious leaders of every faith tradition, and from cultural figures of all kinds. My friends, the presence of anti-Semitism is painful and enduring. The challenge before us is to be vigilant, but not fearful, because fear will distort who we are. We can't let anti-Semitism draw us into tribal isolation, drawing the wagons into a circle hopelessly distrustful of the world around us. As Rabbi David Stern has taught, if the targeting we experience as a minority leads us to fear and target other minorities, then the anti-Semites have won. If the only message we give to our children is, "Be Jewish because your ancestors suffered and died for the privilege," the anti-Semites have won. If the only Jewish cause that excites us is fighting against our persecutors rather than fighting for our values, then the anti-Semites have won. If anti-Semitism breaks our hearts but does not break them open to the suffering of others, the anti-Semites have won. Because in the end, as Rabbi Stern teaches, the destiny of the Jewish people does not reside in some neo-Nazi meeting, or a hateful pamphlet, or a demagogic politician, or even in an act of terror. It resides right here, in this ark, in this, our sacred community, in our hearts and in our hands. In the face of the oldest and most adaptive hatred, the best and most triumphant answer we have to anti-Semitism is a proud and vibrant Jewish life, like the lives my Omi and Opie led. They could have been bitter and angry. They had every right to be. They could have taught their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren to hide their Judaism, or taught us to be Jewish so as not to give Hitler his final victory. But instead, they shared their difficult stories of suffering and survival and urged us to remember them. And They lived full and rich and joyous Jewish lives, supported Jewish causes and their synagogue, taught their progeny to live in the world and fight for the rights of all people. Yes, sometimes the answer to anti-Semitism comes in the form of the need for added security and greater vigilance at the door. But if you consider that the goal of anti-Semites might not be an explosion, but simply the erosion of Jewish self-confidence, if you remember that if this world of ours is a university, Judaism is now more than ever an elective, and each person opts in or out at will, then our shared responsibility to bring Jews of every age into a sense of Jewish meaning, connection, and purpose might well go farther than 1,000 guardhouses in securing the Jewish future. I offer this sermon because I think anti-Semitism is serious. And I offer this sermon to bring you my favorite quotation from the late Rabbi Harold Schulweis, who said, "The Holocaust is our tragedy, but it is not our rationale." We are not Jews because of anti-Semitism. We are not Jews because of Hitler or even despite him. We are Jews because of God, because of Torah, because of Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, because of our commitment to justice and compassion and human dignity. We are Jews because of history and song, because of tzedakah and Shabbat and Yom Kippur, and because of the kugel and the arguments that await at your breakfast tables tonight. As I close, here are two things I've been reminded of in recent months. Number one, anti-Semitism is alive and well, even in bastions of Jewish life like New York City. We must not be blind to or naive about that. We must battle it and defeat it for our own sake and for the sake of other vulnerable communities. And number two, unlike my grandparents in Germany in the lead up to the Holocaust, we Jews in our time are not alone unless we choose to be. Our security team will keep us safe. Our coalitions with others will stand with us when we stand with them, when we need them, and we'll stand with them when they need us. And our embrace of Judaism will bring depth and richness and thickness to a Jewish identity that has endured and outlived and outshined every hatred. May the Holy One of blessing and all of God's people be there for us as we are there for them, now and always. Gemar Chatima Tova.
Kol ha'olam kulo geshet tzar me'od. Kol ha'olam geshet tzar me'od. Kol ha'olam kulo geshet tzar me'od. Kol ha'olam geshet tzar. Kol ha'olam kulo geshet tzar me'od. Kol ha'olam geshet v'ha'ikar lo lefaked klal, lo lefaked v'ha'ikar lo lefaked klal, lo lefaked. As I walk along this very narrow bridge, I will not be afraid. knowing you are with me. As I walk along this very narrow bridge, I will not fear, knowing you are near. V'ha'ikar, v'ha'ikar, lo לפחד כלל, לא לפחד. והעיקר, והעיקר, לא לפחד כלל, לא לפחד. לא לפחד כלל.
We turn to Avinu Malkeinu, page 252. Please rise.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu. Avinu Malkeinu, Katanu lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Kamol aleinu, Ve'alol aleinu. ותקנו.
אבינו מלכנו, לחרב ורעב, מעלינו. אבינו מלכנו, עליך רצון.
Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Odenu b'sefer chaim tovim. Avinu Malkeinu, Kodesh aleinu, Kodesh aleinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu, Shema Kolenu, Shema Kolenu. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Konenu Banenu, Ki en banu masin. Asei imanu, Tzedaka
kamocha va'elohim Adonai ve'en kema'asecha malchutecha malchut kol amim u'memshaltecha bechol dor v'dor Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed Adonai oz le'amo yitein Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom Av harachamim tiva berzoncha et Zion tivnei chamot Yerushalayim tivnei chamot Yerushalayim ערך אפיים ורב חסד ואמת נוצר חסד לאלפים נושא עוון ופשע וחטא ונקה Adonai, Adonai, Eracham v'chanun, Erech apayim v'rav chesed ve'emet, notzer chesed la'alafim, noseh avon v'pesha v'chatah
Adonai, Adonai, God, compassionate, gracious, endlessly patient, loving, and true, showing mercy to the 1000th generation, forgiving evil, defiance, and wrongdoing, granting pardon.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh v'navach Shemo. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'nishtachavu l'char kodesho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'nishtachavu l'char kodesho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'nishtachavu l'char kodesho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'nishtachavu l'char kodesho.
I said to our bat mitzvah, Samantha, from this past Shabbat, she also read this portion, as happens this time of year. That I love the way this section of the Torah starts. It says, Atem nitzavim hayom kulchem. And the rabbis say that the Torah never uses two words when one will do. even though they use 5 words when one would have done. But anyway, that's some of my best friends are rabbis. But it could have just said, Atem nitzavim hayom, you are standing here today to receive this Torah. But it doesn't say that. It says, Atem nitzavim hayom kulchem. And as I said to Samantha, I used to be a rabbi in Atlanta, and there they would have said, it really means, all y'all are standing here today. And what they mean, according to the rabbis, what the Torah means is, not only, as Rabbi Rhinus taught us so beautifully last night, not only are the people who were standing there literally with Moses and Miriam at Mount Sinai, not only were they standing there to listen to Moses' words, but all of us are. We hear the words of Torah over and over again. The process of revelation continues. We interpret it in our time and make it our own. So we invite you into the Torah reading, which is on page 266, and I know Cantor is going to invite our Torah chanters up.
My pleasure to invite up Holly Rabinowitz, Jordana Ingber, Abby Beckler, Maya Martinez, Sarah Marks, Bob Zarowitz, Adam Freeberg, and Karen Blumberg.
And it's my privilege to invite Liz and David Sherman up to offer the Aliyah.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach. Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch ata Adonai notein haTorah.
Amen.
Atem nitzavim hayom kulechem lifnei Adonai Elohechem Rashechem Shivtechem Signechem V'shoterechem Kol Ish Yisrael. Apehem Nishehem V'geireha Asher B'kerev Ma'anecha Mehotei Itzecha Ad Shoei Meimecha Le'ovreha B'ivrit Adonai Elohecha Uvalatot Asher Adonai Elohecha Koreimeha Hayom. L'ma'an Hakim Otecha Hayom Lo Le'am Vehu Yelecha Le'Elohim Ka'asher Diber Lach V'ka'asher nishbach la'avortecha le'avracham le'yitzchak u'Yaakov v'lo etchem levarechem anochi koreit et haberit hazot ve'et ha'alah hazot ki et asher yashno po imanu omeid hayom Lifnei Adonai Eloheinu V'et asher eineinu Po imanu hayom. Ki hamitzvah hazot asher anochi metzavecha hayom lo nifleti mimecha velo rechoka hi lo vashamayim hi limor. Mi ya'alelanu hashamayma v'ikahecha lanu v'yatzmi'enu ota v'na'asena.
V'lo me'ever layam hi lemor mi ya'avor lanu el ever hayam v'yikahecha lanu v'yashmi'enu ota v'na'asena ki karov elecha hadavar ma'od b'ficha uvilvavacha la'asoto.
Re'ei natati lefanecha hayom et hachayim ve'et hatov v'et hamavet ve'et hara asher anochi b'tzavacha hayom li'ahava et Adonai Elohecha lalechet b'drachav v'lishmor mitzvotav v'chukotav u'mishpatav v'chayita v'ravita u'verachecha Adonai Elohecha ba'aretz asher ata v'shama l'rishta v'im yifne levavecha v'lo tishma v'nidachta v'hishtachavita le'elohim acherim v'avadetam higadeti lachem hayom ki avod tovedun lo ta'arichun yamim al ha'adama asher ata over et hayarden lavo shama l'rishta.
Ha'idoti v'achem hayom et hashamayim ve'itaret hachayim ve'hamavet natati lefanecha habercha ve'akilala uvacharta b'chayim lema'an tihyeh ata v'zarecha.
Le'ahava et Adonai Elohecha lishmoa bekolo uldov kavo ki hu chayecha ve'orech yamecha lashevet al ha'adama asher nishpa Adonai le'avotecha la'Avraham u'Yitzchak u'Yaakov latet lahem.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Can we say Yishar Koach to all of our Torah chanters and to our Torah blessers? Yishar Koach. Every day at Shaaray Tefila, we celebrate Judaism and all things Jewish. We are proud and unapologetic about it, and that's what synagogues do. We give special honors and pride of place to Jews today and the whole year round, and that's as it should be. We're also grateful that the Jewish pride we exude leaves room for many fellow travelers. And so today, as we do on most non-COVID years, I want to publicly acknowledge some very important people in our congregation. They're part of Shaaray Tefila because somewhere along the way they happened to fall in love with a Jewish person, and that decision changed their lives. We this morning are honoring non-Jewish partners and spouses along with their Jewish spouses and partners for a special blessing of thanks and appreciation. You are a very diverse group of people. Some of you are living a Jewish life in virtually every aspect. Some of you go to another religious practice religiously, some do not. Some of you define yourself as believers, others not at all. Wherever you are in your religious practice, we honor and respect that diversity. We want to thank you today for your decision to cast your lot with the Jewish people by becoming part of this congregation and for the love and support you give to your Jewish partner. Additionally, we want to offer our deepest thanks to those of you who are parents who are raising your children as Jews. In our generation, which saw 1/3 of the world's Jewish population destroyed, every Jewish child is especially precious. We are a very small people, and history has made us smaller. Our children mean hope, and they mean life, so every Jewish child is a gift to the Jewish future. With all our hearts, we want to thank you for your generosity of spirit in making the ultimate gift to the Jewish people. These people are among the parents who come to cut up apples and honey for our religious school students for Rosh Hashanah, who make Purim costumes, who bring the family to Sandwich Saturday, who make sure there's a challah for Shabbat. Some of you are actually the ones who made it a priority for your family to join this synagogue. Even as you share your own faith practices with them, you help explain to your kids why it's important to get a Jewish education, why it's important to be grounded in the Jewish faith. You help set the Seder table, and some of you are the ones who are going to drive to Long Island for Break the Fast. Some of you model for your kids by taking classes and reading Jewish books so you can help to make a Jewish home. Like many Jewish spouses in our congregation, many of you have learned the family brisket recipe. Some of you make a mean kugel and extra crispy latkes. Some of you have even braved making your own challah, and some of you help you lead your families through the traditions of the holidays. You come to services even when the Hebrew feels strange and the melody feels strange and the rabbis and the cantors seem strange. You hum along to Hebrew songs, and some of you even learn to read Hebrew. You stand on the bima and pass the Torah to your children on the day they become B'nai Mitzvah, and you tell them how proud you are, how much you love them, how glad you are to see them grow into young Jewish adults, and you encourage them in their Jewish lives. For all this and more, we are grateful to have you as a part of our congregation. I hope that you will not be embarrassed or upset that I'm singling you out in this way. The last thing I want to do is to make you feel uncomfortable. What I do want to do is tell you how much you matter to our families, to your families, to our congregation, and how very grateful we are for what you have done. We hope you will receive this heartfelt gratitude of our congregation. We offer this blessing in your honor, this sacred words from the Torah. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, may God bless you and may God keep you. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka, may God lift the divine face to each of you and ever be gracious to you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom, may God grant you the greatest, most precious gift we know, the gift of shalom, of wholeness and of peace. And we all say together, Amen. We turn now to a prayer for healing, a prayer for healing for all those we love who are in need of healing of body, healing of spirit. At this time, if you are praying for someone who is in need of healing, whether you're watching online or you're here in the sanctuary, I invite you to mention their names aloud as we offer a chorus of names together as we're praying. For all of them, for those who are struggling with addiction and those in recovery, we ask God to bring blessings of healing upon them. The Misha Berach can be found on page 273. us sing.
sing, and let us say, Amen. We shall be bless those in need of healing with the fruit the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say,
It's my honor to invite Lori Rubin and Seth Frank forward to lift and dress the Sefer Torah, and we invite the congregation please to stand.
וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ויד משה. הללו, 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 הללו. כל הנשמה תהלליה, הללו, הללויה. כל הנשמה תהלליה, הללו, הללויה. הללו, 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 כל הנשמה תהלליה, הללו, הללויה. כל הנשמה תהלליה, הללו, הללויה.
As we enter into the Haftarah reading from Isaiah this morning, I want to share a teaching from Rabbi Shai Held to help prepare us all to hear Isaiah's words as if it were the first time. Rabbi Held teaches, Yom Kippur is about many things, and it's understandable that we focus so much on our personal relationships. But the Haftarah reading on Yom Kippur morning should be a massive wake-up call for a congregation that might just be zoning out at this point in the service. Isaiah reminds us that the questions of justice and access to the basic necessities of life are at the very center of God's vision for a good society. With that in mind, before we listen to the words of the prophet, here's something to consider. 2,500 years after Isaiah prophesied, of every 100 people in the world today, 50 do not have a reliable source of food and are hungry some or all of the time. 40 do not have access to adequate sanitation. 26 live in substandard housing or are homeless. 19 struggle to survive on $1 per day or less, and 48 struggle to live on $2 a day. If we mean it when we say that all human beings are created in God's image, Rabbi Held teaches that each and every one of us has a divinely bestowed dignity and ought to be able to live accordingly, then the sheer magnitude of human suffering and vulnerability cannot but make a claim on us. If we take the mandate of Yom Kippur seriously, there is no evading these questions. They matter on high, and they have to matter to us too. With that, we turn to the Haftarah from Isaiah. It's my privilege to invite up Lauren and Noah Ross to offer the reading for us, and I believe Jenna is going to help us with the blessings. The blessings are on page 275, and we're going to invite everyone to join Jenna, I believe, and the reading begins on 277.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'rmi ורצה ודבריהם הנאמרים באמת, ברוך אתה אדוני, הבוחר בתורה ובמשה עבדו, ובישראל עמו, ובנביאי האמת והצדק.
Cry from the depth, says God. Do not hold back. Lift up your voice like the shofar. Tell my people their transgression and the house of Jacob their sin. Yes, they seek me daily as though eager to learn my ways, as if they were a nation that does what is right and has not abandoned God's law. They ask of me the right way, eager for God's nearness. They say, why did we fast? And you do not see it? We afflict ourselves, and you do not know us? Because even on your fast day, you think only of desire, while oppressing all who work for you, because your fasting is filled with strife and with callous fist. You strike. No, your fasting this day will not lift up your voice before heaven. Is this the fast I desire? A day to afflict body and soul? Bowing your head like a reed, covering yourself with sackcloth and ashes. Do you call this a fast, a day worthy of the favor of Adonai? Is not this the fast I desire, to break the bonds of injustice and remove the heavy yoke, to let the oppressed go free and release all those enslaved? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry, and to take the homeless, poor into your home, and never to neglect your own flesh and blood?
Then shall your light burst forth like the dawn, and your wounds shall quickly heal. Your righteous one leading the ways before you, the presence of Adonai guarding you from behind. Then when you call, Adonai will answer, and when you cry, will respond, I am here. If you remove the chains of oppression, the menacing hand, the malicious word, if you offer your compassion to the hungry and satisfy the suffering, then shall your light shine through the darkness, and your night will become bright as noon. Adonai will guide you always. Shake your thirst in parched places, give strength to your bones. You shall be like a well-watered garden, an unfailing spring. From you they will rebuild ancient ruins, lay foundations for ages to come, and you shall be called the one who mends the breach and brings back the streets for dwelling. If you cease to trample Shabbat, stop pursuing your affairs on my holy day. If you call Shabbat a delight, a holy day of Adonai honored, and if you honor God by not doing business or speaking of everyday matters, then shall you take pure delight in Adonai. I will lift up your journey on earth to the highest of places and nourish you from the heritage of your father Jacob. For thus spoke Adonai.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol haolamim, tzadik bechol hadorot, ha'el ha'ne'eman, ha'omer ve'oseh, hamdaber umkayem, shekol devarav emet v'tzedek, al ha'torah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al ha'nevi'im ve'al yom ha'kippurim hazeh, שנתת לנו, אדוני אלוהינו, למחילה ולסליחה ולכפרה, לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל, אדוני אלוהינו, אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך. יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד, לעולם ועד, ודברך אמת וקיים לעד. ברוך אתה אדוני, מלך מוחל וסולח לעוונותינו, לעוונות עמו בישראל, ומעביר אשמותינו בכל שנה ושנה, מלך על כל הארץ, מקדש ישראל יום הכיפורים.
We invite you to rise on page 291, and it's my pleasure to invite up Jolie Schwab and David Hodas to open the Ark as we return the Torah to the Ark.
Seated. Page 293. Because I was angry, because I didn't think, because I was exhausted and on edge, because I'd been drinking, because I can be mean, because I was reckless and selfish, because I was worried about money, because my marriage was dead, because other people were doing it, because I thought I could get away with it, because I did something wrong.
Because I'm in pain, because I wish I could undo it, because I hurt him, because I lost her trust, because I let them down, because I was self-destructive, because I was foolish, because I'm ashamed, because that's not who I am, because that's not who I want to be, because I want to be forgiven.
God, bring down my walls of defensiveness and self-righteousness. Help me to stay in humility. Please give me the strength to do what's right. Page 294.
Tefila Ashivenu Adonai Elecha, Ashivenu Elecha v'nashuva, Kadesh Yameinu, Yameinu, Kekedem. Al tashlichenu. Tashlichenu le'etzikna hiklot kolchenu Shema kolenu Adonai Eloheinu usverachem aleinu aleinu Ekabel berachamim, berachamim, uvratzon, et tefilatenu.
Please rise. Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imatenu, Tavo, Tavo lefanecha, Tefilatenu.
our God and God of all generations, may our prayers reach your presence, and when we turn to you, do not be indifferent. Adonai, we are arrogant and stubborn, claiming to be blameless and free of sin. In truth, we have stumbled and strayed, we have done wrong.
Please be seated, page 300. The ways we have wronged you under duress and by choice, and harm we've caused in your world consciously and unconsciously. The ways we have wronged you through our thoughtlessness, and harm we've caused in your world through impulsive acts of malice. The ways we have wronged you by abusing our power, and harm we've caused in your world through disrespect to parents and teachers. The ways we have wronged you by giving in to our hostile impulses, and harm we've caused in your world through inflexibility and stubbornness.
והיחיד שחטאנו לפניך בקלות ראש.
The ways we have wronged you through lies and deceit, and harm we've caused in your world by making light of serious matters.
היחיד שחטאנו לפניך בשיח שפתותינו, והיחיד שחטאנו לפניך בצרות עין.
The ways we have wronged you in our routine conversations, and harm we've caused in your world through envy. For all these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, and lead us to atonement.
שחטאנו לפניך בגלוי ובסתר, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בשנאת חינם.
The ways we have wronged you openly and secretly, and harm we have caused in your world by hating without cause.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בפריקת עול, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך במאכל ובמשתה.
The ways we have wronged you by losing self-control, the harm we have caused in your world by allowing people to go hungry.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בגילוי עריות, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך באימוץ הלב.
The ways we have wronged you through sexual immorality and harm we have caused in your world by hardening our hearts.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בנשק ובמרבית, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך במשא ובמתן.
The ways we have wronged you through greed and exploitation, and harm we have caused in your world through dishonesty in business.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בהרהור הלב, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך ברכילות.
The ways we have wronged you through our innermost thoughts, and harm we have caused in your world through gossip and rumor.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בחפת שוחד, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בחילול השם.
The ways we have wronged you by offering or accepting bribes, and harm we have caused in your world by profaning your name in public. For all these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement. We join together on page 313. Let us affirm the good we have done. Let us acknowledge our acts of healing and repair, for the good we have done by acting with self-restraint and self-control, for the good we have done through acts of generosity and compassion, for the good we have done by offering children our love and support, for the good we have done by honoring our parents with care and respect, for the good we have done through acts of friendship and hospitality, for the good we have done through acts of forgiveness and reconciliation, for the good we have done by keeping promises and honoring commitments, for the good we have done through the work of our hands and by serving others, for the good we have done by caring for the earth and sustaining its creatures, for the good we have done by housing the homeless, feeding the hungry, and welcoming the stranger, for the good we have done by acting with integrity and honesty, for the good we have done through thoughtful and encouraging words, for the good we have done by caring for our health and that of our loved ones, for the good we have done by strengthening our Jewish community, for the good we have done through acts of civic engagement and tikkun olam. All these have brought light and healing into the world. May these acts inspire us to renew our efforts in the world to come.
This year for me, I found being able to be flexible was and is a key to getting through everything. And once I got to the acceptance of this is what is, and I might not like it, and I may be mad about it, but that the one thing that I could be certain of during this time was that everything was going to continue to change. People would talk about the new normal, and I kept saying, this is just the temporary normal. It's going to shift again. So for myself, being able to be flexible and knowing that I was going to have to change and continue to change how and what we did things made it, I don't want to say easier, but made it more bearable.
I learned to cut my own hair. What do you think?
As many of us know, learning and working from home has been extremely difficult. Junior year is known as one of the hardest years of school as you're beginning the college process. I think completing junior year at home was a huge accomplishment and taught me a lot about self-sufficiency and tolerating ambiguity.
During the pandemic, my school went fully remote from March to August. We were not prepared to teach preschool special education students fully remotely online. All of my students were on the autism spectrum and nonverbal. I had to figure out a way to communicate with them, have them communicate their wants and needs, and incorporate their families. Luckily, I had a great group of parents and families that were willing to work with me on these unprecedented waters. This school year, I taught fully remote for half the year, and then hybrid for the remainder of the year, all doing this while commuting back and forth to Brooklyn while pregnant. These were definitely times where I did not expect that I could do this, and I was able to do more than I thought was possible.
I would say that the ability that I gained in the last year was learning how to do less. Pre-pandemic, our family of 5 was pretty much always on the go with very little free time at home. And when we did have free time at home, I was definitely guilty of multitasking. Going through a drawer, cleaning out a closet, checking my email. Obviously, when the pandemic came, activities were taken away and we had a lot more free time at home. And one really great thing that came out of that was I truly learned to relax and enjoy the moment. With my family, we started cooking and hanging out so much more, playing games, watching movies from beginning to end in one sitting, and I loved it and it was great. And I definitely learned to relax and enjoy the moment and stop multitasking all the time. I would obviously give this all back if it would reverse the pain and loss from the past year. But if silver linings are being given out, I would say that I definitely got one, and I'm grateful.
During the pandemic, I decided that I needed to start moving my body and also to enjoy the outdoors. So I started running every other day, and little by little, I gained strength, and here I am a year later, still running every other day.
We've prayed through the words and music of our prayer book and through the offerings of each other, and now we take the opportunity for some silent reflection to hear our own voices speak within to us and to God.
my steps and help me find my way. I need your shelter now. Rock me in your arms and guide my steps, and help me make this day a song of praise to you. Rock me in your arms and guide my steps. Guide my steps and help me find my way. I need your shelter now. Rock me in your arms and guide my steps, and help me make this day a song of praise to you. Rock me in your arms and guide my steps.
Oh, guide my steps
Oh,
and help me find my way. I need your shelter now. Rock me in your arms, guide my steps, and help me make this day a song of praise to you. Rock me in your arms and guide my steps.
Oh, guide my steps. Oh, guide my steps. Oh, guide my steps. I want to just take a moment to thank again our fabulous musicians, Allison Sniffen, who put in hours and hours and hours, and did I say hours of rehearsals with us to prepare for today, and our professional quartet upstairs, Fenisher Nish Harris, Ann Donaldson-Hazen, Mark Renstrom, and Rodney Brown, who are singing up there, masked up in the organ loft in a small space, and providing beautiful music for all of us.
And thanks to Cantor Kipnis and to Jenna for offering beautiful music for us throughout the holidays. In a moment, we're going to put a semicolon in our day. We'll take a pause, and then we'll move over to our Yizkor service. And then learning services begin at 1:30. There's learning at 1:30 and 2:30 and 3:30 online and here in the synagogue. And then we invite you back this afternoon to continue with us for the afternoon and Ne'ilah service, and continue with us into Sukkot and Simchat Torah still to come. For now, we're going to continue with Hayom Ta'amtzenu on page 318.
Hayom tevarchenu, Amen. Hayom tegadlenu, Amen. היום תדרשנו לטובה, אמן. היום תטבנו לחיים טובים, אמן. 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 היום תעשנו אמן. היום תשמע שבתנו, היום תתמכנו במנציקך, אמן. 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 היום תעשנו אמן.
We'll continue with Yizkor in just a few moments.
Where we were before, the library there, the second floor. You walk up that floor.
At birth, a miracle. You light the spark in every human soul. Emerging into light, we breathe it in, the neshama, your sacred gift of life. And every day, every breath comes to us as a miracle. The light within us, unique and precious, is with us always while we live. When breath has ceased and life is gone, the neshama returns to you. And the spark that lived inside the ones we love, unique and precious, beautiful and good, is theirs no more. Their light is ours. Their radiance now burns in us, eternal flame of memory. So we light candles to keep our love alive, to bring their light into the world. A light unique and precious, ours to treasure while we live. A ner tamid that lights our days and gives us strength to journey through the nights. Page 553. Move to the front of the line, a voice says, and suddenly there is nobody left standing between you and the world to take the first blows on their shoulders. This is the place in books where part 1 ends and part 2 begins, and there is no part 3. The slate is wiped not clean, but like a canvas painted over in white so that a whole new landscape must be started. Bits of the old still showing underneath. Those colors sadness lends to a certain hour of evening. Now the line of light at the horizon is the hinge between earth and heaven, only visible a few moments as the sun drops its rusted padlock into place. Page 559. In my darkness be a light to me, in my loneliness help me to find a soul akin to my own. Give me strength to live with courage, and give me courage to draw blessing from life, even in the midst of suffering, to hold fast against the storm, and to smile at a loved one's glance. This year, we invited members of our congregation to share photos of their loved ones, and we're honored that they shared, and we remember them all.
In the rising of the sun, we remember. In the blowing of the wind, we remember. In the opening of the buds, we remember. We remember.
In the blueness of the sky, we remember. In the rustling of the leaves, we remember. As the year starts and it ends, we remember. We remember.
When we're weary and need strength, we remember. When we're lost and sick at heart, we remember. When we've joys we yearn to share, we remember. We remember.
So long as we live, they too shall live. They are now a part of us. They are now a part of us. They are now a part of us. As we remember.
We remember.
We remember.
Page 564. When you died, it was time to light the first candle of the 8. The dark tidal shifts of the Jewish calendar of waters and the moon that grows like a belly and starves like a rabbit in winter have carried that holiday forward and back since then. I light only your candle as sunset, as the red wax of the sun melts into the rumpled waters of the bay. The ancient words pass like cold water out of stone over my tongue as I say Kaddish. When I am silent and the twilight drifts in on skeins of unraveling woolly snow blowing over the hill dark with pitch pines, I have a moment of missing that pierces my brain like sugar stabbing a cavity till the nerve lights its burning wire. Grandmother Hannah comes to me at Pesach when I'm lighting the Sabbath candles. The sweet wine in the cup has her breath. The challah is braided like her long, long hair. She smiles vaguely, nods, is gone, like a savor passing. You come oftener when I'm putting up pears or tomatoes, baking apple cake. You are in my throat, laughing, or in my eyes. When someone dies, it is the unspoken words that spoil in the mind and ferment to wine and to vinegar. I obey you still, going out in the saw-toothed wind to feed the birds you protected. When I lie in the arms of my love, I know how you climb like a pea vine, twinning, lush, grasping for the sun, toward love, and always you were pinched back, denied. It's a little low light the yahrzeit candle makes. You couldn't even read by it or even warm your hands. So the dead are with us only as the scent of fresh coffee, of cinnamon, of pansies excites the nose and then fades, with us as the small candle burns in its glass. We lose and we go on losing as long as we live. A little winter, no spring can melt. We continue on page 567 with Yizkor Chavim.
There are stars up above, so far away we only see their light. Long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us as we live our days. These are the ways we remember, as we live our days. These are the ways we remember,
יש כוכבים שאורם מגיע ארצה, רק כאשר הם עצמם עבדו עינם. יש אנשים שזיו זכרם מאיר, כאשר הם עצמם אינם עוד בתוכנו. אורות אלה המבריקים
הדרך, את הדרך. הם שמרים לאדם את הדרך, את הדרך. We remember, we remember.
We take a moment now to remember our loved ones in silence. Page 580, I'd invite anyone who is in the first year of mourning for a loved one to stand, if you are able, and read with me. The night I lost you, someone pointed me towards the 5 stages of grief. Go that way, they said. It's easy, like learning to climb stairs after the amputation. And so I climbed. Denial was first. I sat down at breakfast, carefully setting the table for 2. I passed you the toast. You sat there. I passed you the paper. You hid behind it. Anger seemed more familiar. I burned the toast, snatched the paper, and read the headlines myself. But they mentioned your departure, and so I moved on to bargaining. What could I exchange for you? The silence after storms, my typing fingers. Before I could decide, depression came puffing up, a poor relation, its suitcase tied together with string. In the suitcase were bandages for the eyes and bottles of sleep. I slid all the way down the stairs, feeling nothing, and all the time hope flashed on and off in defective neon. Hope was a signpost pointing straight in the air. Hope was my uncle's middle name. He died of it. After a year, I am still climbing, though my feet slip on your stone face. The tree line has long since disappeared. Green is a color I have forgotten. But now I see what I am climbing towards. Acceptance, written in capital letters, a special headline. Acceptance. Its name is in lights. I struggle on, waving and shouting. Below, my whole life spreads its surf, all the landscapes I've ever known or dreamed of. Below, a fish jumps, the pulse in your neck. Acceptance. I finally reached it, but something is wrong. Grief is a circular staircase. I have lost you. Our condolences to all of you. You may be seated. Let the light of late afternoon shine through chinks in the barn, moving up the bales as the sun moves down. Let the cricket take up chafing as a woman takes up her needles and her yarn. Let evening come. Let dew collect on the hoe abandoned in long grass. Let the stars appear and the moon disclose her silver horn. Let the fox go back to its sandy den. Let the wind die down. Let the shed go black inside. Let evening come. To the bottle in the ditch, to the scoop in the oats, to air in the lung, let evening come. Let it come as it will, and don't be afraid. God does not leave us comfortless, so let evening come. We continue with Psalm 23, page 593.
Adonai roi lo exar inot deshe yarbitzeni al menuchot yenaleni nafshi yeshovev ancheni b'magelei tzedek yancheni b'magelei tzedek leman shemo. Kam ki elech begeit salmavet lo irara hi ata imadi shivtecha umishantecha hema yinachamuni. Taroch lefanai, lefanai, shulchan neged zorerai, dishanta mashemen roshi kosi revaya. Ach tov v'chesed yidifuni ko yemei chayai, ko yemei chayai, v'shavti beveit Adonai leorech yamim. Adonai roi lo exar. Adonai roi lo exar.
Our loved ones live in our broken hearts, and at times that brings some measure of healing. Their acts of kindness and generosity are the inheritance they leave behind. We feel their absence, but the beauty of their lives abides among us. As it is said, the name of one who has died shall not disappear. Our loved ones' names and their memories will endure among us. And these are the names of loved ones and friends who've died since last Yom Kippur. If you hear the name of a loved one, we invite you please to stand in your place. Marilyn Bender-Altschul, Melissa Bader, Alice Barrow, Helen Berger, Dorothy Burkowski, Eric Blaustein, Paolo Bonato, Jack Boshak, Diane Browser, Gary Brooks, Roberta Corwin, Ian Crystal, Glenn Danziger, Mel Edelman, Arthur Engelman, Janet Fuchs, Alan Fuchs, Iris Gare, Ralph Gantz, Judith Leah Gilbert, Sonia Sachs Glaser, Joyce Abrams Greenberg, Norman Gross, Irving Halper, Shirley Hershey, Abe Jacobs, Herbert Jacobson, Ann Kellerman, Hannah Kosterbaum, Barbara Loffer, Beryl C. Loffer, Jason Liederman, Eric Lemberg, Lenore LaSalle, Dina Levitina, Shirley Levy, Bonnie Light, Seymour Merberg, Benjamin Montes, Joan Elaine Nobler, Arnold Ohl, Betty Rosenbaum, Rudy Schott, Julie Sherman, Bennett Silverstein, Marion Silverstein, Helene Smith, Carl Santz, Mary Steinglass, Bernard Steinloff, John Strugo, Allison Sudo Bailey, Dorothy Tabachman, Molly Topaz, Mitchell Waldman, Harvey Young. If there are others whose names were unknowingly or inadvertently left off of this list, we invite you please to rise and mention your loved one's name aloud. Zichronam livracha, may their memories live as an enduring blessing. We remember them all. We rise as a community for El Malei Rachamim, page 598.
Shochem bamromim, hamitzei menucha nechona, tachat kanfei hashchina. Im kedoshim utorim, Zohar harakia mazirim v'nishmot yakireinu shehalechu leolamam. Astirem b'seta k'nafam leolamim bitzror achayim et nishmatam. Adonai hu nachalatam v'yanuchu b'shalom, b'shalom hamishkavam v'nomar
Merciful God, God Most High, let there be perfect rest for the souls of our loved ones who have gone into eternity. May they find shelter in your presence among the holy and pure, whose light shines like the radiance of heaven. Compassionate God, hold them close to you forever. May their souls be bound up in the bond of eternal life. May they find a home in you and may they rest in peace. And together we say, Amen. Page 602. Please join with me. We miss them at celebrations when there's an empty seat at the table. We miss them when the community gathers and there's an empty place beside us. We miss them today and every today, with every year that passes, as our life goes on without them, their faces, their voices, the feel of our arms around them. These are with us forever, for so it is written, love is strong as death. The love that we gave, the love we received, these endure amid the pain of loss. Kaddish is on page 606. Yitgadal, Yitgadash, Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divrach Yirteh v'yamlich malchuteh, V'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Le'alam Alalmei Almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shmei Dikudsha B'richu. Le'ela ule'ela mikol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, damiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim alenu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom alenu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru. Amen.
Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom alenu ve'al kol Yisrael
Gemar Chatima Tova. Please stay with us throughout the rest of the day. Shana Tova.